If you feel stuck in your 9 to 5 and you know you're meant for more, but you just don't know how to break out, especially through real estate, today we'll uncover 7 strategies that can get you started if you own a property or you don't own a property. Now, my name is Sanjay Parashar and I'm on the journey to 100 properties. Currently, I hold 50 properties which I own. Now, if I knew these very 7 strategies from the 0 to 50 properties, I would have implemented them a lot sooner, but it's taken all that time, that pain and experience to be able to understand what I could do with either no money down or being able to utilize other people's properties to get started, or even have no experience and be able to scale a lot faster than I have so far. Now, I remember waking up and dreading work. I used to do emails on the way to work. I was a health practitioner and I used to see patients from start to the end of the day. During this journey, I always wanted a way out and I knew real estate was my game. Real estate is my core passion. And ideally, I built these 7 strategies, which I'm going to show you today, that are easily implementable, that you can do more research on, but also you can engage more help with. Now, these 7 strategies are very particular to anyone wanting to get into this space and escape their 9 to 5 job. Now, a lot of the time, billionaires out there and millionaires, 90% of them actually end up investing into real estate over their lifetime, and usually that's their wealth plan. But the trouble is, in today's industry, is a lot of them do not disclose their strategies because what's the point? Now, for me, I'm on a mission to be able to help people for free, but more importantly, if they need the additional help, take them from point A to point B. Now, this isn't a one-step solution and it isn't a get-rich scheme. No. It is a long-term wealth play, but today we'll show you how you can cash flow to be able to replace your 9 to 5 job with weekly income from real estate from the very start. Now, there is a large misconception that I was always told as well, that I had to go to work, I had to stay in that job. I used to look at doctors around me, and even at 70, they were trading their time for money. And deep down, I knew that I had to do that for 2 to 3 years at extremely high volume, where I gained a lot of attention to myself because of the mass volume I was doing to be able to become successful in my field and that expert to be able to then leverage out. Now, often I was actually doing real estate deals in between my patients as a health practitioner. And this has been unseen in my industry to be able to really push forward hard with 2 industries. But in the end of the day, it allowed me to scale to a property portfolio of 50. And today, these 7 strategies and the breakdown will allow you to understand and skip all the lines to be able to go, okay, what can I do and learn from someone that owns 50 properties in 5 years? Don't believe me yet? Today, we'll be taking you through each strategy in an easy to understand format, so you can implement them very simply from start to finish. At any stage, you can drop a comment below or follow me on Instagram so I can show you exactly the steps through my stories, or just send us a DM so we can get started. Now, for strategy number 1 is Airbnb Arbitrage. Airbnb Arbitrage is absolutely a beautiful starting point from anyone. Because instead of learning real estate from the very start and learning how to close and learning the finances behind it, you don't need any of that. You don't need banks. You don't need a backing behind yourself. You can simply get started. Now, the misconception with Airbnb Arbitrage is people think that it's the real estate business, but in fact, it's not. The business is hospitality. And all you need to do in Airbnb Arbitrage is being able to rent someone's property for a certain price. You furnish the property and provide an amazing hospitality experience, and you rent it out on a short-term basis at a higher price. Now, the reason why it's called arbitrage is because the difference between what you rent it for and what you actually obtain in net revenue from short-term rentals is crazy. And a lot of people are doing this around the world. Now, to date, I've been able to arbitrage properties in Australia. Also, I've been able to arbitrage properties in the UAE. And I definitely find it like a positive strategy because you get cash flow from day one. All you need to do with this type of strategy is being able to find the properties you can rent, being able to negotiate with the landlords to be able to sublease or sublet their property, and then being able to provide the hospitality experience. With Airbnb Arbitrage, you can scale very quickly. The reason why I do Airbnb arbitrage is for me to increase my cash flow very quick so I can understand the market and then I can go and purchase a property in that very market. Because believe it or not, when you purchase a property, your repayments will be far lower than the usual rental repayments, and that will allow you to even obtain a larger profit compared to just the arbitrage strategy in renting. So it's a great starting point for you to understand the model, because once you actually get to the stage where you can purchase, your profits are going to be even greater, and you've also proved the model in someone else's property. Airbnb arbitrage is probably one of the most significant opportunities to date, and this is why we've started off strategy number 1 with this. But if you stay right till the end, the last strategy is one of the most significant, because you can actually own the property without even paying anything down. Strategy number 2 is lease options. Lease options are an absolutely fantastic idea and probably one of the most important strategies if you also want to control the property. How a lease option works is if an owner wants to sell their property but doesn't want to wait, you have the option to say, I'm happy to take on a lease for this property and also give you a certain purchase price at the end of our agreement. The beautiful thing is you actually control the property without actually owning it, and also can improve the property whilst also locking in that future price. The beauty about a lease option is inside that lease term, you can short-term rental it, you have the opportunity to renovate it, and at the end of the term, you built a lot of cash flow from that property, but more importantly, you've paid the owner along the way, so they stay settled. And the best thing about it is you have the opportunity, if you improve it or have a great rental track record from your short-term rentals, you can actually go and on-sell it to an additional owner at an increased price. The beautiful thing about a lease option is this, is capital gains always plays a part with property, and that's why cash flow is so important from the property itself, but the capital gains is what you can leverage. Now, with a lease option, say for example, you purchased a property for $500,000 and that property a year and a half later, let's just say 2 years later, was worth $600,000. You lock in that $500,000 price, you tell the owner, hey, I'm also going to give you a lease so you get monthly cash flow and you have this locked in, well in place, but more importantly, at the end of that term, your property is worth $100,000 more whilst also you built cash flow. The significant opportunity in today's world with lease options is any owners that just want to get out and move on, however can't wait for the purchase price or something dramatic's happened in their life, even for a family sale due to a potential death in the family. It's a fantastic option to lock things away so everyone can move on, and that way they can continue to get that cash flow with a contract in place. Strategy number 3 is wholesaling. This one's fantastic as well, and the reason why it's different to lease options is this is when an owner wants a quick sale. So the key factor of the quick sale is you can present a contract and get that signed straight away. With wholesaling, the benefit of this is you lock in a price, for example, $400,000. With that $400,000, you have the ability then to reach out to as many people as you like with due diligence clauses. And one of those due diligence clauses could be, hey, if you want to exit that deal or you're not able to find an investor, that's a very common question that we get. And you can put a due diligence clause in there saying that it's also pending partner investors. And how that actually works is by the time if you don't find your investors, you can easily utilize the due diligence clause to exit. But how you get paid out of a wholesaling contract is you can secure the deal, secure the money you're going to sell it for, reach out to any investors that you know, or even other agents that have the time to look for potential buyers, and you get paid on the arbitrage between them. So for example, we have that $400,000 you've put on paper, you approach agents, you put it online, you would reach out to your family and friends, or more importantly, you reach out to investors if you know a lot of them and you're in a tight inner circle. And with that due diligence clause, you can then ensure that you have the time, potentially 60 days, to be able to make that arbitrage gap. You could sell this for $450K, and that is an easy $50K for offering someone the deal, the contract, the ability to do their own due diligence whilst you hold this. Usually in this situation, The seller itself is very happy because they've got something on paper to go off and they know they're in the game. A lot of the time, their core issue is the waiting game, dealing with multiple people, or importantly, if a family is trying to sell a property, they usually cannot negotiate with one another on the best sale price, especially when new buyers are coming in the door. It takes a very long time. This is the fastest way to secure a property, but this is the fastest way to also on-sell a property legally based on your contract. So wholesaling could be a fantastic opportunity. I see people doing it all the time, especially fast sales. This brings us to strategy number 4, and probably the most relevant for all investors out there because it's the easiest to do and more importantly, makes the most sense. How house hacking works is you purchase a property with 2 income streams. In this case, a townhouse is a fantastic idea to implement this. With house hacking, say for example, your mortgage repayments are $2,000 a month. You can utilize $900 in one side of the property, which you put forward to live in, and utilize that $900 toward your mortgage repayments, and then you can rent out the other side for $1,100. What this actually does is heavily increase your serviceability. A lot of people ask me, what is serviceability? Well, it's your ability to service more real estate so you can move on quickly and not allow you to suffer the consequences of a primary place of residence. A lot of people get trapped, especially in a 9 to 5. They go out, they purchase their dream home that they can just afford. They go to work, they pay the mortgage repayments, and they stay in that trap forever. If that sounds like you, this could be a good opportunity because instead you can get out of that and exit out of the deal. And if you still need to, which I usually don't implement in my strategies, but you still need to live in the place that you purchase, house hacking is a fantastic opportunity because more than half your actual repayment can be covered by someone else. And that allows you to invest into another property with the additional money that you have from a serviceability standpoint, and also keeps you super safe because when you go and purchase that second investment property, you have all this additional income that you have left aside from your job to be able to leverage into that. And hopefully that next purchase that you do is a completely cash flow property, which then pays you at the end of the week. Strategy number 5. This is probably one of my favorites because you don't need any experience again. There is absolutely no money down. There is no negotiation, and you don't need any particular strategy in any certain area. It's almost zero risk. And this one is co-hosting. A lot of people didn't know that they can assist with co-hosting for other short-term rental properties. So what is co-hosting? For example, say I'm a property owner and I want to get my property on the short-term rental market. Well, co-hosting is beautiful because you can actually reach out to a actual co-host on these platforms such as Airbnb and ask them to assist with the management, the regulation, and the hospitable aspect of managing a short-term rental. So if you wanted to be a co-host, you could simply sign up to platforms like Airbnb, apply to be a co-host, go through the items that you need to be able to register yourself as a co-host, and property owners can start to approach you to be able to manage the Airbnbs. I'm going to give you 3 simple tips so you can be a successful co-host if you wanted to get started today. The first one is ensuring that you have a good network of cleaners, or you can get to that property quickly if you need to take over. The second one is important quality control. Now, what I mean by this is you want your reputation as a co-host to be number 1. So first, the actual owner never lets you go. But number 2, you start to gain ranking on that platform. And with quality control, you could even do a post-cleaning check. You could also do a pre-cleaning check to ensure that your guests have left the place in an absolute 5-star condition. And if not, replace any of the items via reimbursement strategy with that hosting platform. So such as Airbnb, if a guest damaged a light, it would simply request for a reimbursement of that light and get it replaced really quickly. And the third and final strategy is being able to position that listing with quality photos and quality creatives so it drives bookings and it has a very low occupancy rate. Now, in our school community, which we have off YouTube, we've actually started a free school community, and we actually teach people how to co-host or arbitrage, use any of these strategies purely through the examples that I've done. I usually break it down, and for obvious reasons, we usually place it in the community because we can't share everything online. But ideally, if you wanted to get started, you could join that school community, which is in the link in this bio. And we teach you how to do these 3 strategies very simply so you could get started today. But co-hosting is a wonderful strategy if you just wanted to start to make income, because a lot of the time you can make 20% of the whole revenue amount from these short-term rentals, and it works perfect because the hands-off opportunity for number one, the owner, but also for you, it's extremely low risk and you can get started as long as you have the correct strategy. Strategy number 6 has to be my favorite because it's simply a numbers play. And this one is remote ownership. Remote ownership works like this. There's a misconception in the world, especially from a 9-to-5 perspective, that if you own a property, you need to be able to touch it, it needs to be in your area, and you need to be able to visit it all the time. The worst strategy that people have been told as well is that you need to manage your tenants, you need to be in contact with your agents, you need to be able to go and fix anything if something is wrong with your property. But what about if I told you, if the numbers worked so well from a cash flow positive perspective, that you could have someone handle that for you? Now, as you can see here, I've just chosen the US as a good example because it's got so many states. And you could simply look at the data of each of the states and find the highest cash flow states and then start to negotiate on deals in that region. The reason why areas are sometimes higher cash flow than others is because they have a lack of building supply, but a high demand of people still wanting to stay there, usually in high working environments, or more importantly, in coastal towns with fantastic views. However, they're not really close to major CBD hubs. Now, cash flow property is literally the key because this increases serviceability, but also allows you to have resources to be able to help you manage that property. So how does this strategy actually work? Well, if you looked at the data and you found the highest cash flow areas, all you could simply do is start to negotiate on deals because more than likely you're going to get a deal. And the fact of the matter is that the better you negotiate and the better you buy, the higher the cash flow is. But a lot of the time, a lot of people don't even know how to negotiate the real estate, which really doesn't solve their cash flow problem. So if you're in that category and you want to escape your 9-to-5 job, this strategy itself could be the starting point for you to obtain high cash flow, to be able to obtain great resources, to be able to manage that property, and more importantly, increase your serviceability so you can get into better assets in the future. Now, let me tell you this. The core of this strategy is being able to just build a team. Build a team of agents in the region, build a team of resources that can allow for repairs to occur, and more importantly, if you even plugged in a short-term rental strategy, considering that the cash flow could be quite high, and rentals are high in demand, especially in a working class regional area, you could even boost the cash flow 10 times higher and actually fully replace your 9-to-5 job with more than $1,000 a week. It's very easy to do. Now, in our school community, which I mentioned earlier, we break down strategies on what we use on platforms such as AirDNA, because you could go on AirDNA and look at the short-term rental amounts on active listings currently. Now, these numbers do not lie because you can start to find properties that generate up to $100,000 per year. And this is real data. You can go and check it out. It's just important you know the strategy on how to look for these properties and also review the occupancy rates and the quality of the data on AirDNA. So we showed you that inside the school community because it's a free place for everyone to share ideas so we learn from one another. But this strategy could be the absolute key to get you out of that 9-to-5 from simply purchasing right. Now for strategy number 7, this has to be my favorite, is seller financing. I've implemented seller financing into my deals before because it's such an attractive strategy for the buyer, but also the seller if you find the right one. Now, how seller financing works is, let's pretend like we are the seller, the end user of this product. They can actually offer a solution to the buyer to be able to get their right price. Now, a lot of the time in real estate, the negotiation is often for the right price. And a lot of the time, the sellers get undercut all the time. So how seller financing works is you can say, I'm going to come up to your price if you allow me to pay some of the money now upfront and some of the money after a period of time. The benefit of seller financing is they get their guaranteed amount. And this is all that you should allow them to focus on. But what it allows you to do is be able to get a mortgage at a discounted rate. So instead of having to come up with 100% of the cash, you may only come up with 50% of the cash and fully exchange on the property. The seller then gives you 50% in lieu, right? So in space, where they don't actually have to give you the money, you just owe it to them later. And usually in this arrangement, everyone's happy because they know that they've sold it at the right price. They know they get 50% of their money right now. And also they know they're going to get the rest of their money that they guaranteed for at a later date. The way you could sell this to the seller is you could say, if you sold it right now for everyone that's coming to you at a lower price, you actually lose the extra 100K or 200K everyone's trying to negotiate with you from where you're trying to sell it and where they're trying to purchase it. What I can guarantee you is that extra $100,000 or $200,000, which in theory you might get 1 or 2 years later. And based on this, I'm even happy to provide you some additional cash flow and a monthly repayment. What you could simply do in this situation is you then exchange and purchase this property. You obtain the loan from the bank. The bank pays 50% to the seller directly. You then owe the seller another 50%. You could then occupy the property for 1 or 2 years, whatever you agree with the seller. And you could even short-term rental it if you want. Your cash flow goes so high because your repayment's so low to the bank. You can then engage with the seller and provide them a monthly cash flow to their end. You take some of the cash flow after your short-term rentals, and in 2 years' time, you refinance the property based on the equity gain. The thing about short-term rentals and why this could be an attractive strategy whilst you occupy that property is you're improving that property to make it a short-term rental. So the seller could give you that property in an average condition. You go in there, do a little paint, you go in there and actually improve the dynamics of that property, nice furnishings, and more importantly, provide that experience. At that 2-year mark, the beautiful thing about this is when you refinance that property, it's most likely going to be one of the best properties in the street. And when you refinance that property, you might get the additional $200,000 gain, which originally you need to then give back to the seller. And at that time of refinance, you pay the seller out. You've now got a property which you paid no money for. And then you continue the same strategy that you've implemented the whole time and take 100% of the cash flow from the short-term rental. Or hey, even if you do the long-term rental, you stay there. Now, these are 7 simple strategies which are easily implementable. You can do these, you can do some research on them, you can put them into AI and say, hey, can you implement them into your current life? Or you can also join our free school community, which I'll leave a link in the bio, where we can all share these ideas. Every day, we implement current strategies which we're implementing, and more importantly, as I'm on that journey, if you're still here, from 50 properties to 100 properties, you can see how it's scaled now with all this experience, how we're moving day to day. Guys, it's been an amazing video, and hopefully these 7 strategies allow you to escape your 9-to-5 job, because I've been there and I know exactly how painful it is. And I knew I was always destined for more. This is just the start of the journey. So please click that subscribe button, because you'll see how we go from that 50 to that 100 and all the trials and tribulations in between. It's going to be amazing. I'll see you in the next one.